So calling this the Great Locomotive Chase is actually sort of probably violates the Disney copyright, so please be kind. And I really should have called it maybe the not so great locomotive chase. And I think I justified why we could call that. It's sort of less than meets the eye, but it's still a very important and very interesting story. And I'm going to say that I'm kind of Mr. Sidebar for this symposium. You know, that you have a big book or magazine, they'll put little sidebars, you know. So there's a little sidebar about the Hellgate, and here's another little sidebar about the locomotive chase, so that's me. So, this is April 1862. Remember, the war's been only going on for a year. The Battle of Shiloh is April 6th and 7th. So we're still kind of finding our way. This is the first really major Union excursion to try to, McClellan hasn't gone to the Peninsula yet. So this is the first major excursion of the Union Army into the South. And they wanted it to go well, which is really important. So the guy who this starts with is this guy named Ormsby Mitchell. And he's probably a mathematical genius. He's a math instructor at West Point. His classmate at West Point, he was at West Point, and this guy named Robert E. Lee, class of 29. He's a lawyer, a surveyor, an astronomer. And he actually founds an observatory in Cincinnati. It's still there, but it's not an observatory anymore. It's a museum, but it's still there. And I have to say that he's called Old Stars, was his nickname. You know what? I got to jump aside a minute. How many generals were named Old something? Everybody was named Old something. Well, he's called Old Stars. And they were all named Old something except Grant, who was just called the Butcher. So they didn't name him Old anything. Grant was just the Butcher. And you could say that Grant's a great general. Lee is, probably the best general of the Civil War. You could argue that, but neither one of them has a crater on Mars named after them, and Mitchell does. So there we go. Settles that right there. So there you have it. The other thing about Mitchell is he ends his name with a single L, but practically everywhere you look, it's got two L's on it, and he must have gotten really annoyed by that. The thing about Mitchell, and we'll talk a little bit about what his role in this whole raid, he dies of yellow fever in October of '62 at 52 years old. So a lot of what happened is not known by anybody because he took some of this information with him. So no one knows exactly what happened when he was doing all this stuff. But he has this problem. He wants to take, Shiloh has not happened yet when this is happening, this first part. He wants to take Huntsville. He actually is a pretty good general. I don't want to minimize the fact that just because he's an astronomer called Old Stars doesn't mean he wasn't any good. He's very good. And he doesn't want to lose his army in the process. Because he really needs, the prize is Chattanooga. It's a rail junction that's critical to the Confederacy. And so is Corinth. If you take those two, you basically have the whole South. I'm going to shout out to Cleveland, not for any particular reason. Has nothing to do with this presentation, but I grew up there, so you don't see it on maps very much, so hi Cleveland, there we go. Thank you for this back to our presentation. And this rail line, this is the Western and Atlantic Railway. Not very big as a monopoly, very small, but they have Huntsville, Chattanooga, and Atlanta. So it's a very, very important strategic rail line. More so when the invasion starts, because now it's not just an important rail line, it's the supply line to Chattanooga. It's the only way they can get in and out is through basically the back door. If you've ever been there, you know where all this stuff is. It's like there's a ridge right here. It ends with Lookout Mountain and the Tennessee River. So his problem is, he wants to basically take Chattanooga. How is he going to do it? Well, he gets this proposal from this guy named James J. Andrews. And this is why it's called the Andrews Raid. And Andrews he's an enigma, and I think Andrews wants it that way. He works both sides of the fence, if you want to view it that way. Both sides of the Confederate. He's probably selling information to the Confederates, and he's selling information to the Federals as well. So he's kind of getting profit on both sides. We do know a little bit that he was running quinine from the south to the north and selling it. So he's one of these guys that he doesn't want to be too well known, because then people start asking questions like, why are you always here? But he doesn't want to be unknown, because then people ask questions like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? So you have to be familiar, but not real familiar. I think it's something like this. Blend in, but don't make it look like you're trying to blend in. This kind of this whole operating thing. Nobody knows what the J stands for. They still don't know. He lists his residence as Kentucky, Flemingsburg, Kentucky. He's engaged to someone there, so he's a real person. His age is listed at 33 when all this happens. But there's some debate as to was he really 33 years old? Because there's no birth record. He was born in what's now West Virginia. And there's just no record. There just was no record of his birth. He claimed he was 33, and why would not believe it? He was 6 feet tall, a tall man, and he had to have been a good talker. Just to do the job, the kind of things he was doing, you had to be able to talk your way out of a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting scrapes. He was proposing to Mitchell, this is April 6th, the eve of Shiloh. Mitchell's, I don't have the map up anymore, but Mitchell's right there, pretty close to Huntsville. Shiloh hasn't happened yet. Would end up being a Union victory. But Andrew says, okay, well, I'm going to tell you, I tried this before and it didn't work. I'd like to go south to Atlanta or near Atlanta, capture a train, drive it north, and burn bridges on my way north. Now, Mitchell is a pretty smart guy. Mitchell's saying, okay, what that means is you've closed the back door to Chattanooga. There was only on one wagon road. So you close the railroad, you basically cut off the supply. I can take Chattanooga with the guys I got, they'll probably surrender. So Mitchell, and an important point to think about this is, who plays who here? Was it Andrews playing Mitchell, or was it Mitchell playing Andrews? And probably it was Mitchell playing Andrews. Very good. Nobody really knows. But so Andrews had actually tried this once before. He went down to near Atlanta. We'll talk about how this worked. But going to capture a train. They were supposed to meet up with someone who could drive the train. They never showed, either cold feet or something happened, so they all just went away. So that was the first raid. So now he says as well to Mitchell, if you supply soldiers or volunteers to me, I'll lead these men down to try this raid. Mitchell says, why not? So that's how this whole idea gets started. Now, the question, was Andrews paid something? Is he doing this for money? I certainly didn't want fame because he wanted to continue doing the smuggling bit. And if you were notarized, that would not work if you were famous. So this question of what did Mitchell tell Andrews he could have? And nobody knows because Mitchell wasn't around to say what that was. So, let's see. So the way they meet up, and this is the other kind of odd thing about this, there's a lot of things about this raid that's strange. But you know what, in the sense of, this was 1862, the war was still pretty new. I mean, it wasn't like something we really knew what we were doing. So this probably was like, okay, let's just try it, see what happens. The soldiers, there's actually maybe 23, all enlisted men, no officers. There was a master sergeant, so there was some hierarchy in the unit, all from different units of the same area of Ohio, southeastern Ohio. Well, that's because where Mitchell was from. He was from Cincinnati. That's where they raised the regiments he was commanding. And so it was sort of natural. It wasn't, nobody really knows, there were 3 guys from the same company of the same regiment. So it's likely they knew each other. It wasn't that big a, big organization, but the rest were scattered all over. They probably didn't know each other. They meet up. So the way it kind of worked was, do you want to go on this mission? It was volunteer. They didn't tell them. They didn't fool them either. They told them, if you get caught, it was being hanged. They went anyway. Now these men were all enlisted again. They had some combat experience. Perryville campaign, but most of it was spent probably in winter camp over the 61, 62 winter. And I would have to probably guess that some of this was, I'm just bored as hell, and I just want to do something, right? So this is the idea of where they got the volunteers. And they made sure they were competent. They were making sure they were kind of not hand-picking, but sort of filtering out the troublemakers. 23 enlisted men volunteer. They meet, probably, most of them, for the first time, in this meeting at night in a thunderstorm. And you see thinking, well, shouldn't there be like this, they are under trading and, they form little groups, the montage of every Hollywood movie like this. There was no such thing. They didn't know each other. There were no officers to command them. And if you think about the chain of command, it was 23 guys, a master sergeant in there, Andrews, Mitchell. That's how this worked. So you would have thought, and I would have thought, they would probably think, how is that supposed to work? What do we get? Is he going to give us a direct order or court-martial us or something? Who was Mitchell? Who was Andrews? They had not ever met Andrews before. They taught, they were told about him. So their only instructions were civilian, dress in civilian clothes, bring a loaded pistol. That was it. Don't bring anything that would identify you as a member of the Union Army. That would be very bad. They were all from southern Ohio, so the accent thing really didn't work against them. And they were basically going to pass as Kentuckians if they were questioned. And it worked. So it actually was, part of that plan was good. It started raining when this meeting took place, and it probably didn't stop raining for 2 weeks. So the whole time that this is going on, it's raining. I'm going to call out this guy named Pettinger, and the reason you sort of have to do that is Pettinger writes this. He's a school teacher before the war. He publishes a book in 1863, about a year after the raid. It's the first published account, first-hand account of this raid. So everybody who does stuff on the Andrews raid almost always is going to quote Pettinger because he wasn't necessarily who was the best. He was the first. And it's all written in the first person, and it's called Daring and Suffering. The first third of the book is the daring part. That's what I'm covering here. The second 2/3 of the book is the suffering part. Because he's, as you'll see, is captured, and he basically talks through the whole ordeal of what it was to be a soldier who was captured and basically eventually paroled. What happened to you? And it's a very good book. And he has a very self-effacing, very interesting style of writing. He talks about how foolish and silly he was, as a young man. He was 26, but, and things that he did wrong. Is very convincing. He seems to be pretty accurate. And here's the kind of weird part of this book. And you can find this online, by the way. It's the Gutenberg Press, where you can actually you can Google it and read the whole thing. I can't remember how many pages. It's a lot of pages. Pettinger, to be fair, he puts an account of this whole thing. That was 16 pages of his book is a Southern newspaper account of what happened. For balance, because he wants to balance out his story with how the Confederates saw it. So he's kind of, that's a pretty good guy. So it's Pettinger. So I got to credit him before I keep going, because if you say something about so-and-so did this, or so-and-so said that, or this happened, it was Pettinger, basically, who was basically talking about all this stuff. Thank you, Mr. Pettinger. Saturday, April 12th. So this is how this kind of goes down. Andrew says, here's some money, so he must have got money from somewhere. Get to Chattanooga. Don't group up. Don't stay together because that will look bad. Get to Chattanooga. Take the train to Marietta, Georgia. We'll meet up again there. And that's sort of the instructions. There wasn't a lot of planning. They did tell him again that if you get caught, you'll be hanged. So your cover story or your escape clause is if you're caught and you're really stuck, just join the Confederate Army. That was it. That was it. They were laughing, but that's what they were told to do. On the way there, there's 23 of them when they start, to get caught. Actually, a couple more get caught, but they really get caught. They're asking a lot of uncomfortable questions about, if you are from whatever Kentucky, tell me about this. Of course, they didn't know. So those two guys joined the Confederate Army. Eventually, they sneak back across, to a Union Army unit, and they escape. So they don't get there. So 21 guys left, plus a civilian. We'll get to in the end, and Andrews. So 23 people in total, but 21 soldiers going. I'm going to call them raiders from now on, because soldiers is kind of weird. 21 raiders, okay. They all eventually do get to Ringgold, Georgia. There's adventures on the way, but I don't have enough time to talk about all the kind of the weird things that happen to some of these guys. But all involving getting lost, found again, asking for directions, and then realizing they're asking the wrong guy. Anyway, a lot of stuff happens, but they do all get there. On the morning of April 12th, actually in the evening, April 11th, Andrews shows up, explains what they're going to do. Now, they had a pretty good idea they're going to capture a train. But they didn't know how to do that. How was this going to work? And he explains it, and of course, they all have a loaded pistol, six rounds probably in that pistol. That's all they had, by the way. There were no reloads. It was just one gun, 6 rounds. That's all they were told. So they meet up. Andrews meets up the night before. They says, okay, we're going to get up early, 4 a.m. called the Fletcher House Hotel in Marietta, Georgia. This is what it looks like. Oops, that's the route. This is what's happening. Let me start over again. Okay, you're gonna meet at the Fletcher House Hotel in Marietta. You can kind of see where Marietta is down here. There's Atlanta, Marietta. This is the Atlantic Railway going up to Chattanooga. So this is where all this takes place on this segment of the railway. Kind of works bottom to top. At 4 a.m., earlier than that, the general leaves Atlanta. So Andrews has a schedule, because he's frequently in these parts. He has a pretty good idea about what the schedule is on the railway. He knows the general's going to be leaving. It's kind of a mixed train. The general engine itself, followed by 3 boxcars, followed by 3 passenger cars. It's a standard thing. There's nothing exceptional about it. Typical. The boxcars happen to be empty just because they are. No particular reason. A guy, okay, this is the other thing about this, you have to understand. We think the engineer runs the train. They drive the train. The conductor runs the train. And the conductor of the general, this guy named Fuller, is a really important character in this whole adventure of the chase. Fuller is the guy who signs the bill of lading, the passenger list. He signs the train out. He owns the train until he signs off at the other end when he delivers the cargo. So it's Fuller who owns it, not the guy who's driving it. It's an important point. So the raiders get up. They are going to go. They go up, and actually they buy train tickets. And when the general comes north, stops at Marietta, not all 23 of them get on. 21 get on, plus the civilian, plus Andrews. Now, where are the other 2 guys? They are actually in Ringgold, Georgia, at a different hotel. They forget to pay the porter for a wake-up call, and they sleep through it. I mean, honest to God, this happens, and it's sort of unfair to them, but we make up for it, that they are sort of like known as the 2 who slept through the raid. The idea is that the beds are so comfortable they had a problem not slept in the bed for months, and there it was. So they forgot to pay the porter, don't get the wake-up call, they're not there to meet the train. They're not going to wait for them. Now, Andrews is not going to wait. So now we're down to 19 soldiers, if you count, and the civilian Andrews. So 21 young men get on the train as passengers. They have tickets. So what happens is, this is all Andrews' plan, and it's actually a good plan. Oh, just a little bit about the general. It's made, boy, I can find that. It's made by, sorry, I just had it. The Rogers Company in Baltimore. It's kind of a cute story. Is that it's put on a sailing ship, sailed on a sailing ship to Savannah, and then driven across to Atlanta. And I'd just like to see a picture someday, or a painting of this general sitting on the deck of a sailing ship. Just what does that look like? It's kind of weird looking, but that's how it got there. It's not really an exceptional engine. It's sort of a standard, if you want to view it that way, engine. They say it was one of the finest on this rail line, but that doesn't, I mean, maybe all their other engines were not very good, so I don't know what that really means. Empty cars, again. It takes about 138 miles, that map you saw, 138 miles in Chattanooga. 12 hours normally to travel that distance. So they meet at the Fletcher House Hotel, they have tickets, they board the train, and they head north in the passenger compartments of the general. They're, again, blending in, trying to not look like they're blending in, sort of thing. And young men moving around, actually, it worked out, and I think Andrews worked this out. Conscription was going to go into effect in the Confederacy at the end of April. So there are a lot of young men moving around the country, sort of going to the place where they wanted to enlist for that particular regiment. So the idea was, they would just say that they're doing that, and it sort of flew, and it sort of worked. What are all these young guys with guns getting on the train for? So now we're moving north towards Chattanooga. They stop at this place called Big Shanty. It's now called Kennesaw in Georgia. And there happens to be a hotel and a restaurant there. Andrews knows this. And he knows this is the breakfast stop for the train crew. And actually everybody who's a passenger. So They stop at Big Shanty, they all get off the train, except for the 21 guys. They stay on the train. You know, they don't say anything, they just sit there. All the passengers get off, the crew gets off, they go into the Big Shanty restaurant or whatever, they're having breakfast. Now, anybody, we have train aficionados in the audience. Anybody loves trains? Okay, if you did, I could just say the words link and pin coupler, and your heart would start to beat faster. These trains have link and pin couplers, which is basically kind of like a chain link with a pin on each end, and that's how the cars were linked together. They move, they go to the the last boxcar, the third boxcar, they pull the pin out, so the passenger cars are now detached. All the raiders, they go on they kind of, just casually as you can be, get on the boxcars, get on the engine, and press the throttle forward, and start moving away. Now they have the engine, they have the general, they have the train. Not the passenger cars, just the engine. And so it goes pretty well. I mean, this is where if you were making a movie, yes, you did make a movie, you're playing the theme song, you know, this is really great. Of course, Fuller and the engineer and the fireman are busy with their breakfast, and someone points out, Mr. Conductor, there goes your train. And so, it doesn't like pull away at high speed, it's just, we're rolling along. And Fuller starts to think, and here's the other remarkable thing about this, on the opposite side of where the Big Shanty station is a Confederate encampment of 5,000 Confederate soldiers who are mustering into a regiment. And of course, it's early, though. It's real early in the morning. It's a Saturday, real early in the morning. They're not out, running. There's some pickets and stuff, but they don't think it's anything remarkable because they're just like, why did they leave the passenger cars behind? That's weird. And so again, they don't do anything. Fuller comes out running. He's thinking it's deserters from the encampment, commandeered his train, and they're driving it off. So he's thinking, well, they'll just take it up 30 miles and stop and run, and stop and get out. They don't. They keep going. Fuller is on foot chasing his train. He doesn't want to give up. And his firemen and his engineers see Fuller doing this. They follow him. And you kind of wondering, this guy a marathoner or something, but he's running. He just wants, he's, first of all, probably mortified that he's lost the train. It's his train. He lost it. There he goes. Eventually, they find what's called again, the general's moving. It's not moving at high speed because Andrews knows they don't want to attract attention. So he actually is following the schedule of what the train where it would arrive, when it should arrive. The other thing about Big Shanty that was pretty smart on Andrews' part, they had no telegraph office there. There's no way they can warn anybody north of them, right? Andrews has got this stuff pretty well worked out. It's pretty good, there's things about him I don't like, but he is actually pretty clever to get this all worked out. So they start moving north on schedule. No passenger cars, but on schedule, because they don't want to attract attention as they go past places that might have a telegraph office. So what they do is, he knows where all the telegraph offices are. They don't stop there because the general was not scheduled to stop. But they go past those offices. Some guys get up, they run up the telegraph pole and cut the wire. So as they're moving north, they're cutting off everything south of them as they go past it. They stop and they pull up a section of track. Now, this is another part of the story. There's so many things in the story that strike me as odd. They see some guys doing some work on the track, and they ask if they can borrow a crowbar. And the guys give it to them. It's like, well, here it is. But they don't ask them, what do you want it for? Who are you? Just here it is. So now they have a crowbar so they can pull up the spikes and pull off pieces. They pull off a rail, actually load it onto the general, onto one of the boxcars, and they move forward again. Trying to blend in without looking like they're trying to blend in. That's the whole theme of this raid, because they don't want to get caught where somebody thinks, that's wrong. Let me get on the telegraph before they can cut the wire, right? So that's the general idea. They eventually get to this part where there's let's see, let's keep going. Oh, this is basically drawings of the Big Shanty. That's the breakfast place. That's where you can't barely make it out, but you can see the passenger cars in the very back. This is the federal encampment. This shows them being alarmed, but actually there was nobody. They didn't know what was going on. So now they're moving north, and they get to where this spur track is, it's called the Cooper Ironworks. Oh, this is the use of the chasers. There's Fuller in the middle, Murphy, and King. These are not contemporary photographs. This is after the war. They took these pictures. You kind of see them running, and then they find what they call a push car, which is like basically a square car on wheels, like a wagon sort of thing, that will run on the track, and they just push with a pole. And they do that because they're getting tired by this time. But they don't see where they remove the track, the rail, sorry, and they hit that, and the car goes off the tracks, and they all tumble off the car. So they're mad now. That's what this is showing here, that they feel foolish because they should have been smarter, but they didn't see it. Altoona Pass, you can see this is where they're cutting the wires. They didn't stop a lot, but they did stop 3 times to cut the wires, and once to take a piece of track. And now they get past, this is where the ironworks are placed. There's a train engine fully up to steam, sitting on a siding. The train engine is called the Yona. Enders doesn't know this was going to be there. It's not in the Great Plan book. It's not, it wasn't part of the schedule. He has no idea what this train is. As they're going past, some of the raiders say, we probably should stop and disable this train. They're going to chase us. But it's not in the Andrews plan. He doesn't want to stop. He's also scared because he thinks, well, there's a telegraph office farther down that spur, and if they get to there before I can, they're going to telegraph ahead of us, we're caught. So he doesn't stop. He goes past it. Eventually, what's going to happen is Fuller is going to get there. And Fuller finds the Yona steam up, sitting there on a siding. And he explains to them what's going on. Of course, they cut the line. By the time Fuller gets there, they've cut the line north of that siding, so they can't telegraph ahead. It's dead air. So Fuller gets in the Yona, and they start going north. So now there's a little bit of a chase. Not quite the chase. That happens right here at the Cooper Ironworks. So far, actually, so good. I mean, this raid's gone pretty well. Pretty well planned, by the way. I mean, just hear what I'm saying. This is really pretty smart. This guy's good. They get to this place called Kingston, and everything goes wrong. And this is where Mitchell sort of blows this whole raid apart. Because Mitchell was supposed to actually advance on Huntsville on the 12th. And he changes it, for whatever reason, I don't know. Weather, I think, was a little bit better, to the 11th. Which still doesn't affect them. It's pretty far away. Huntsville's pretty far away still. But there was rolling stock, Confederate rolling stock in Huntsville, and they evacuated and sent it south to Atlanta. So now that's coming down the track. Well, guess who doesn't know that was going to happen? Andrews doesn't know. So now they're sitting, you can barely make it. At the very top of the map, the little map, this is what the rail yard looked like. You see the general on the siding there. So Andrews is waiting, because he's supposed to wait there. But he sees a train come past, and it has red flags on the front. He doesn't know what train this is. This is bad news, because a train with red flags on the front, I learned, meant that there's another train behind me. Don't go on the track until that train comes, because you're going to hit that train. So he has to wait. What is he going to do? He says, wait. He's sitting there thinking, what am I going to do now? If he's starting to realize, oh boy, we're in trouble now. My great plan's starting to fall to pieces. Another train comes in. Red flags on the front. So Andrews is losing his nerve now. It's sort of like, well, the best laid plans is not working out for us. He goes into the switchmaster's office, which is way down here. And he goes into the office, and the switchmaster, not the station master, the switchmaster, and he picks up the switch key. It's kind of like an odd-shaped block with a handle. It's not like a skeleton key, it's a switch key. And the switch key allows the switch, it's like think of like a big lever that you throw to change the direction of the switch. Well, you can't change the switches unless you put the key in and flip the lever. So Andrews just picks it up, walks out of and he just walks down there and sticks the key in the switch, switches the track to now be, basically off to the side where they're parked, and he takes off. And he talks about, he tells the raiders, we're in deep trouble, boys. This is it. We're caught, in a way caught. Now they're physically caught, but they're going to know we're here. So now the chase is really on. Now there's none of this pretext of staying on a schedule, or they do stop and cut the wires because they're hoping that the Kingston isn't going to spartan up before before they do send a telegram. A telegram, but it's too late. They already cut the way they cut it just north of Kingston again. So they're still trying to do that, so stopping the getting caught up a track ahead. Just as they pull out, just a few minutes later, the Yonah comes in with Fuller on it and his engineers. I mean, they missed him by just that much. So if Andrews hadn't done that, they would have been in the switchyard now the whole switchyard is blocked. So Fuller knows, okay, this is not going to work out. He finds another train, and it's right here, because that's the name of it. He finds another train, the William Smith. He gets on that train, Fuller does, and they take off after Andrews. And the switch just happens to be set in the right direction, thank goodness. And now the chase is really on. The thing is, it's just enough time. Just enough time. I mean, we're talking minutes here. That they can stop the general and pull up another piece of track. And they do. So, to much of the frustration of Fuller and his fireman and his engineer, they're stuck again behind a broken piece of track. Now, the track isn't damaged. They're just picking up pieces and taking it with them. It can be easily fixed, but they don't have a piece of track with them. So what are they going to do? So they get out and they start running again. And that's a lot of fortitude. Again, I don't know if they're really running, but they're moving as fast as they can. Okay, so now we're past Kingston where everything goes wrong. It is, and now they're busted, really. There is a train coming south. The train, the second train with red flags was flagging. It just happens to be on the siding, just dumb luck. If they had been on the track, they probably would have hit it head on. But they didn't. So it's not good planning, it was just luck, just dumb luck. So that Texas is on the siding, they speed past it. Now they're moving fast as they can move, really. I mean, they're going to get caught, and they want to get as far north as they can, before the alarm goes up. On the Texas, there's another guy, Henry Haney, and another guy, Peter Brackett. Now, the Texas is facing south. The general goes past going north. Just about that time comes Fuller, out of breath probably, and they jump on the Texas. They try as best they can to explain what's going on. No telegraph office around here, sorry. We have to keep going. Sorry, we have to keep going. They find, I'm going to have to speed ahead a little bit. They finally catch up. The Texas is going backwards, catches up with the general, and what's happening in the meantime is they're burning up all the fuel because they're going really fast. They just really literally run out of speed. So they go past this place called Tunnel Hill. The tunnel's still there, and they run out of speed. And so now here comes Andrew's escape clause. He says, scatter boys, it's every man for himself. You got to wonder if this was the thing going on all this whole time. Why did he need 22 guys? Or 21 guys? Well, 21 guys running around the woods, if you have a map and a compass, Andrews did, is a lot better if you're not one of those guys, because they're the ones that don't know where they are. They're the ones that they don't, they're lost, they've never been that place before. Andrews knows where he is. So maybe that's his cover. That's Andrews' escape clause right there. They never do Brenner Bridge. Never happens. I mean, told to wrap up, I'm going to keep going a little bit, because this is important to the faith. There's a courts martial. And here's the argument. Andrews tries to defend them. He says, okay, we did not steal the train. They're called train thieves. We didn't steal the train. We captured it. And it's a good argument, by the way, because it's like if you capture a gun in a battle, you don't say you stole the gun. You didn't steal the gun. You captured the gun. They captured the train. They weren't in uniform. But he points out in the court, look at all these centuries you've got, the guards. They're not in uniform either, and they weren't. There was no standardization in uniform. So they weren't in uniform, but look at everyone else is not in uniform. And we're not spies. If we were spies, we'd be skulking around, hiding, trying to keep our identity secret. We didn't do that. We got captured. They're all, 8 of them were tried and condemned to be hanged. The other ones, they just didn't get to them. They started shelling Chattanooga, so they moved them all south to Atlanta. Guess what engine pulled the train down to Atlanta? The general. So it's kind of ironic. There they go. Bad things happen. I'm not going to go through all the prisons. They did escape from prison and were recaptured. Kind of an interesting thing. The 8 that were convicted or court-martialed successfully are all hung. The guy who's a civilian, We'll get to his name in a minute because it's coming up. And Andrews, the civilian, he gets hung first, and the other one's 5 days later. They don't hang anybody else, and that's kind of a weird thing. Why not? Why didn't they try them? They just did not. And it's kind of weird. Why didn't they try them? It was just things got busy. You know, their Chattanooga had to be defended. There was other things to do. This wasn't important. We'll get to that. So here they are, and this is really almost the whole point of doing this is to talk about some of these guys. I don't have a lot of time to talk about them, but I just want to at least show their names. These are the ones that were hung. Mitchell Campbell is the other civilian. They did not know each other, by the way. Campbell was just a guy hanging out at one of the Ohio camps, thought, this would be cool, I'm going to go along with these guys. You know, not a good idea, Mr. Campbell, but there you go. He gets hung. These other guys all get hung. So these are the 8 that are tried, convicted, hung. These are the guys that escape. Now, there's a breakup. They hear things are bad, they're going to go bad for them. They're overhearing this conversation. They're in a jail in Atlanta. All of them try to escape. 8 make it. 6 of them go north, re-link up with their units. 2 of them float down to the Gulf of Mexico and are picked up by a federal gunboat. They make it. The other ones all exchange. Why didn't they hang these guys? They didn't. Because they never tried them. Why didn't they try them? I don't know. The most important person in this whole list in one way is this guy named Private Jacob Wilson Perry. After they were paroled, in 1863, almost a year of being a prisoner, they get paroled. They're sent to Washington. They meet Stanton. He hasn't come to his office. He talks to them a little bit. He's really impressed by this guy named Jason Wilson Perry. He pins a medal on him. It's a medal of honor. I almost said the wrong thing. It's a medal of honor. The first person to ever be awarded the Medal of Honor is Jacob Wilson Perry. You can look it up. And it was just sort of a thing. He was just like standing on the spontaneously saying, here's your medal. The other 6 are the other 5 are the first 5 after Wilson to be awarded the Medal of Honor. Just because they're in Stanton's office. And he also gives them $100 each, which I think they probably really appreciate. That's a lot of money deal for them. So that's the story of the Medal of Honor. Now, all of these guys, except 2, let's just back up. This guy named Wilson and Shadrach never get the medal to this day. Why not? And nobody knows, except the only time I've ever seen this explained was there is no record of an application being made. But so what? I mean, what about all these other guys, you know? What about the guys who escaped? Didn't somebody say, let's give everybody a medal? Now, here's another thing. It's kind of, obviously, I'm setting myself up. The 2 guys who didn't get the wake-up call, they get medals of honor. Not the 2 guys that never get them, but the 2 guys, I mean, again, 19 medals of honor awarded, but 2 of the guys who were hung, and they paid with their lives. Maybe they didn't do a whole lot, but they still were hung, didn't get the medals. Why did they not get medals? You know, it's like, anybody want to take up that cause? Let me know. Just going to go through this quickly. The general survives. There's Fuller, he survives. He probably never buys a drink in Georgia for the rest of his life. This is a reunion in Chattanooga. The general was there for a while. Popular culture, a movie called The General. You can see this on YouTube. It's one of the top 10 silent movies ever made, and I have to agree because I can't name 10 silent movies, but it is really good. It's humorous and very, very interesting how they filmed it. All live training scenes. With Buster Keaton. This is the Disney movie. It's in the Disney vault somewhere behind all the gold bars. I don't know where it is. You recognize that Fuller is played by Fess Parker, who also was Daniel Boone, who was also David Crockett. He sings a song. I don't know if that was required by his contract, but just sing a song the night before all the Raiders meet up, and he sings this thigh-slapping little ditty, kind of cute. But it's a very good movie. There's Walt in the filming of it. And interesting enough, one of the engines used in that movie was using Gods and Generals. I don't even remember that movie. I'm getting a wrap-up thing. I'm not usually going to show a segment. I'm not going to do that. The other I have to credit, because a lot of what I use in this is this guy named William Kurtz. He is a historian, Very accurate. His specialty is Andrews Raid. Of course, if you do anything on Andrews Raid, you're going to use Kurtz because he's really good at what he did. Just going to keep going here. That's just showing you how he did the drawing. There he is. He was technical advisor gone within and the locomotive chase. That's the Texas today, restored probably much better than it ever looked in real life. It looks like a showroom race car kind of condition. Beautiful. That's in where the cyclorama is, the new cyclorama in Atlanta. 25 minutes away by car. The Museum of Civil War and Locomotive History in Kennesaw, Georgia. And there's the General. So they're not together, Texas and the General, but they still both exist. I love this engine. It's beautiful. It has brakes. Now it didn't have brakes during the Civil War, but now it does. And then there's this. This is, if you go to the Federal Cemetery in Chattanooga and you go in the main entrance, you can't miss it. It's right there on the right by the entrance. And this. Whoops. I will succeed or leave my bones in Dixie. It's a quote from Darren Andrews, and he did. So that's my story of the Great Locomotive Chase. Hope you enjoyed your sidebar.
Thank you, Dave. I think we'll bypass the questions.